Firestone Ride-Rite air springs replace the factory coil springs on your truck. These springs allow you to kneel the truck to easily load or unload. Let's take a look at how to install these springs onto a Ram 1500. Check Ride-Rite.com to ensure a correct fit for your truck. Always take appropriate safety precautions when working on your vehicle. Wearing the right safety gear and disconnecting the negative battery cable are a great way to start. Compare the parts listed in your instructions to what you received. Ensure you have all the pieces and organize them for easier installation. With the vehicle empty and parked on a flat surface, measure the distance from the fender lip to the wheel lip and write it down. Do this on both sides of your truck. Next, with the rear of the vehicle raised and axle hanging freely, remove the wheels and fender liners on both sides of the truck. The truck should now be lowered onto jack stands. Once in place, go ahead and remove the lower shock bolts. The shocks can now hang freely from their top mount, or you can remove them entirely, but this isn't necessary. With the axle drooping, remove the coil springs and upper mounts on both sides of your truck. Now, let's switch gears and begin pre-assembly. Grab the Firestone air springs, air fittings, upper mounts, and threaded studs.
Install the air fittings into the springs. Tighten the fittings until they're snug.
Now, slide the upper mounts over the threaded studs so the flat surface is touching the top of the air spring. Bring the assembled air spring over to the truck and insert it where the coil spring used to be. Place the top plate on the top side of the upper mount. It's easier if you align the top plate with the studs. Hand tighten the hardware to the top plate, making sure the air spring sleeve doesn't contort or twist. The air spring's bottom has a threaded hole. This hole should be pointed toward the truck's rear, while the air fitting should be pointed toward the front. With the spring situated in the lower axle mount, go ahead and secure the bottom using the provided hardware. Once the air fitting is correctly aligned, go ahead and tighten the hardware and reinstall the shock absorber. That takes care of this side. Now repeat the previous steps on the other side of your truck, and we'll move on to the inflation valves next. The inflation valve will assemble according to the diagram shown in your instructions. You can use the supplied mounting bracket, and if you'd like to relocate the bracket to a different location, additional drilling may be required. Next, grab the airline tubing. Take the ends together and unravel the rest of the tubing, noting the middle that splits it into 2 equal lengths, and mark this spot. Be sure to cut the tubing squarely and evenly across its width. Doing otherwise will cause leaks, which you absolutely don't want when it's all said and done. Take your tubing lengths and insert them into the air fittings and inflation valves. Go as deep as you can and then give them a good tug to ensure they're not going anywhere. Observe the undercarriage of your truck. Note where it makes the most sense to route the tubing. Avoid spots near heat, debris, and sharp edges, as well as areas where the line may kink or scar while routing. If necessary, use the supplied thermal shields whenever the tubing comes within 6 inches of a heat source. Now we're going to put some air into the springs. Fill them both to 70 psi, checking the pressure as you do so. These things fill up quickly, so don't wait too long between checks. Using a bottle of soapy water, spray a small amount onto the air fittings. For 30 seconds, watch for any bubbling. If you see some, you have a leak and will need to do some troubleshooting, which you can find tips for in the instructions. If not, then you're good to proceed to the final steps.
You're on the home stretch now. Go ahead and adjust the air pressure of the springs to 50 psi and reinstall your wheels.
Remember, the maximum pressure on a Ride-Rite air spring is 100 psi. As the vehicle is descending, watch the air springs. They should show the sleeves rolling over the pistons.
Now, reinflate the springs to match the stock height measurement you wrote down between the fender lip to the top of the wheel. Whether you're towing or not, ensure you have enough pressure in the air springs at all times to maintain factory ride height.
Once you reinstall the fender liners, you're done. The Firestone Ride-Rite springs are good to go, and your truck is now good to tow. Over the first few days after installing the springs, remember to do some checking up. Start by checking pressure twice a day and look for changes in ride height after driving. Check the tubing for clearance. You don't want anything getting pinched or overheated. Also, look at the springs before, during, and after the first time towing a heavy load. And finally, make sure to never overload the vehicle or exceed the gross vehicle weight rating. That does it for the Ride-Rite Air Helper Spring installation on a 2012 to 2018 Ram 1500. For questions, comments, or to confirm fitment, be sure to visit Ride-Rite.com or call 1-800-888-0650. Happy trails! Firestone Ride-Rite. Comfort, confidence, and control.